Hello, and welcome back to episode 16 of the Move It podcast with me, Jared Urain, here at the 5 Diamond Group Advice Realty. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode, our final episode, part 4 of this month's issue of Travel. It is a holiday week and a weekend, and I've got the specialist of special guests with me today, Gabriela Macal. Hi. Yes. I am great now that you're here, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. We are going to get started with our episode here today because we've got some really cool pointers to share with you, and I'm really excited to share the insights that Gabby brings to the table to kind of wrap this entire month up. But to get us started, let's get that intro going. Lex, take it away. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we get started, I want to make sure that if you loved these episodes, please feel free to share them with any of your friends that would take away some of the insights. Secondly, hit that reminder bell so that every time we get a new podcast uploaded and loaded, you'll get reminded as they come along. Feel free to subscribe to any of our social outlets on all of the social outlets at 5 Diamond Group. And if you have any specific questions, you are absolutely welcome to direct message us, or you can reach out to our direct line on that's available on our profile. Let's get started. We know that the world is a big and beautiful place. We know that it is full of cultural differences and all kinds of experiences that are available. You, my dear, are you are the reason why I travel. But it's because of travel as to why I think, my opinion, why we do it so much. Because you had already traveled. I was already traveling. I think that was one of your cues as part of our relationship. So maybe you can share a little bit about that experience as to why you and I do that, or how that came about. But it certainly has given us an opportunity to learn about ourselves. I personally feel it has certainly put some stress test on there and helped us understand our characteristics as well as our unique differences and how we can navigate those. And by learning from them, I feel it's brought us closer in many different ways.
Absolutely.
You can share your perspective, because that's what this is for the forum to do it. But it certainly has shaped a global perspective, in my opinion, allowing me to be kind of thoughtful in what we do, specifically in our everyday routines, like why we pick certain foods, like why we even do this whole adventure that we call life together. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I've got some questions that are going to be kind of typical ones, and I want you to be able to share your insights for everybody so that they can take away some of these cool things, and then more specific kind of tactical things that you can help folks with. Cool?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Get started. Let's start from the beginning. I talked about how you and I kind of we got together because of our travel. What's your version of it?
Absolutely. I mean, I needed to find... I'm not good with directions, so I needed to find somebody who can navigate me and drive me around.
Okay.
And that I could depend on, and that I could count on being there all the time. Mostly, I did some traveling before we were together, and I really wanted somebody that I can continue traveling with, because my favorite part of traveling is remember this place and this food, and traveling with a different person every time was kind of like, hard to share that afterward. And that's one of the highlights of traveling, is what happens after, the memories and the pictures. And it's not the same when you're sharing it with someone who wasn't there. And they're like, this tasted so good, and my mouth was watering. And they're like, that's nice.
Yeah, I didn't have these things.
So it's nice to have you to be able to relive moment after moment and moment with them, and to drive me around in different parts, because I'm not a good driver.
You're a chauffeur.
Navigator.
So you traveled before we even got together. What inspired you? Like, why travel? Like, what was so interesting about it when you beforehand?
Well, I used to just not like redundancy or the same thing all the time, which is another reason why I picked the careers I pick, because I want every day to be different. I don't want to show up to the office and have the same day over and over for 20 years, So traveling is one of those things. It gives you something to look forward to, whether you're working. I think you should absolutely love what you do, be happy to show up to work, but also have something to look forward to. And then when you come back, start planning the next one, and do memories and do that. So that's why I love to travel. I love food. Most people know I love to eat. I've never met anybody who's eaten everything I've eaten. I've yet to find
one or two that are pretty close, but yeah, that's true.
I think you're the closest because you don't really have a choice. But
it's been fun.
Most people look at me and they won't even take things that I offer them.
They know better. So you don't like the redundancy, and then travel was just a way to kind of express that, or what was it about?
Well, the more you see, the more you fall in love, and the more you want to see. And then the more you want to see, the more you realize there's more to see that you haven't seen. And then you just get exposed to more flavors and experiences. And it's just you keep opening doors and doors and doors, and it's bigger and bigger. And it's just exciting that, most people are like, oh, are you done? I'm like, no, I just started. There's so much more on my list.
You've reached all 7 continents.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. How do you choose the destinations?
So different ways. I usually will make a list. These are the places I want to visit, maybe 10, 15, and then I wait for them to go on sale. Because, before I was paying for one person, then when we got married, it was 2. Once we had kids, it was us plus the grandparents. So it went to 6.
Right. It wasn't kids. It was the grandparents too, right?
It went from 1, 2 to 4 to... Or
no,
yeah.
It was
4
to 6.
One kid would take grandma.
Right.
And then we had 2 kids, and it was let's bring everybody.
Yeah.
So not because it's because it's so much more fun to share the experience. But usually, I have a list of places, and then I wait for them to go on sale, because if that's the number one way to affordably travel on a budget. Because if you pick a place and you pick the dates, that's all you get. But sometimes moving those dates by a week, you're saving 75%.
Yeah.
So I pick the places and I wait for them to go on sale. And then sometimes you're like, hey, this place is on sale, random places on sale today, a price that's unheard of. It's oh, never mind these other places. Let's just go here because it's really, really good deal.
Right. You mentioned key component previously, and we kind of glossed over, but it's sharing the experiences. Yes, we've grown into this travel experience with a bunch of friends and family, because we can share with them, and it's that whole drug addict of planning and experiencing it with all the challenges and drama that it comes with, and then reflecting on it. And that component, I feel, is that's the part that just keeps recycling. And I agree with you. I think it's really exciting.
And I agree when you see addiction, because it does become a little bit of an addiction in a sense of, now, planning is I enjoy it, but it's not easy. It's not fun. It could take hours, so getting that budget.
More like days for you sometimes.
Hours. It could be 100 hours. It could be. So a lot of times when it is a group effort, I'm happy to, if I'm already doing the planning, get that involved, and that makes it easier for other people. But traveling on a budget is, it does take planning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that as much as I give you a hard time about being up late at night with your phone in bed, it's that's part of your planning experience. That's how you do it. I don't necessarily agree with this time.
I sacrifice my sleep to make sure you guys can have a wonderful.
That's right, guys. That's how much sacrifice you put into this experience. Blood, sweat, and tears. So the destinations are chosen typically by price. You have a list. You have an ideal list, and you wait for a sale. Right. Yeah. But more than
I'm signed up to over a dozen, maybe 2 dozen different websites that will notify you when your airport or whatever airport you designate have a flash sale or a special sale or something. Yeah. And then points, we do most of it on points nowadays, and we have for years. So whenever those sales go on, you have the points, see if, hey, can we make this happen?
Right.
But there's certain things that, we have our list. So I hold on to wait for those things to go on sale, and it's usually a pattern. So, okay, this place should be going on sale usually this time of the year, and you kind of watch it and learn. So it's a little bit of a...
Yeah. So you take your list and you line it up with the sales cycle, go from there. In fact, that answers the question. If you can share some tips for aspiring travelers who want to explore the world on a budget, that would be a first place to start. Get your list. Find the sales.
List. Yeah, if you don't narrow it to one thing 1 week a year,
Yeah.
Be open. Pick a bunch of weeks and pick at least 5 places.
Right.
and wait for it to go on sale. Be patient.
Yeah.
Some people are not patient, and when you're not patient, you just end up overpaying for something, top dollar, certain times of the year, and then you could only take that one trip because you spent all your money there.
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen savings of, like I said, over 75% just by being patient and flexible.
So for folks who, let's say, who have a full-time job, they have to plan their weeks of vacation like 6 months or a year ahead of time. Try and do it on an off week that most people aren't traveling on.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to get some better deals and check those cycles. Yeah.
Spring, fall, winter will always be cheaper in the summer. But if you're flexible, Google Flights, Google Explore is the absolute dream for a traveler, because
And that's what you were doing before it came out.
in there, you say, hey, I want to go somewhere this week.
Right.
I don't know when, but this is the week, this is the month that I want to go. Where can I go in the world? And it'll show you every place, what the prices are, all the airlines, and then you know your budget, and you're like, hey, that fits Lima, Peru. Let's go.
Right.
Or whatever.
Cool. So I have seen you personally help so many people get over their fears, get them motivated to just, overcome their challenges, as whatever they are, to actually go and take that trip, specifically internationally. I have enjoyed watching you do that, but what would you identify as being like the top 3 or 4 concerns that people have as far as fears, challenges, whatever they are, that prevent them from going on that trip?
So number one, absolutely, is budget, money. People are like, I can't afford it. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. I can't afford it. You look at Hawaii, June, it's probably going to be close to $1,000 a ticket, but there's ways to go for much less, or for free, or on points. So it's like, hey, if you really want to go to Hawaii or Italy or wherever you want to go, and you want me to help you, I'll help you get there. I'll help you set up, your credit card, as long as it lines up. I'll help you take your whole family on points and only have and get your hotels covered. If that's really what you want to do.
If that's the challenge.
So budget is usually the number one thing. They're like, how can you afford it? So that's usually the biggest one that they start with.
Well,
yeah.
A couple more.
And then from there, it's fear. Sometimes it's like just fear, like, I don't know what to do. If it's another country, I don't speak the language. How are you supposed to get there? That next boils down to finding someone to go with. Sometimes the husband's not so willing and open to travel, whereas the wife's like, hey, I want to leave the country. I want to try it. The husband's usually a little more scared. I see that a lot with husbands, and it's rightfully so.
I was there, man.
You don't know. You have to protect your family and know what you're exposing yourself to, and you don't speak the language and the conversion rate and all that. So
I'm thinking right now, Kenya, Tanzania, Russia. Those are like the 2 big experiences for me.
So sometimes it's finding someone to go with, and I was joking earlier, but I might be starting a matchmaking service for people that want to travel. So you want to be matched.
Sign up to mzfargag at Instagram. Is that what it is?
And then, and a lot of times for them too, we say, hey, look, or they'll tell us, hey, if you ever go here, or if you're going there, let us know. And I'll let them know, and sometimes and surprisingly, there's been quite a few people that are like, hey, look, this went on sale, but I tell them, look, it goes on sale. It's usually like a 2-hour sale. So you don't have time to like think about it.
Yeah.
You really have to think about it before. Like, I know I want to go to Italy. This is what I got. Okay, what you got? You got points, you got money. Where you're at? And then I'll call them. I'll make that call 3 months later. Hey, remember you said you want to go to Italy? It's on sale. We're going. You want to come? Here's how you book it. And surprisingly, quite a few families have booked it.
You up.
And they book it then. It's like, oh, wow, they're coming with us.
Right.
So they'll come with us and join us.
That technique is really good, because you prep them, you let them know, like, look, in order to do this within this scope, be ready. You've got to be ready to pull that trigger.
Yeah.
You can't be sit there thinking about it. Oh, if only I had this and that.
Day and it's gone. These sales usually only last maybe sometimes an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And the cool thing is that once you pull the trigger on that component of it, everything else starts snowballing into place, and you'll find everything else, which is great. So, addressing the budget concerns, you said you can help them set it up. You can help them prepare psychologically, family-wise, financially, and all that good stuff. But as far as the fears go, like the concerns about in the language barrier, or like the destination, what would be some of those solutions?
I mean, you can try Duolingo, but you won't get very far.
Right?
So you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Google Translate. Had a lot of fun translating with that because sometimes it says absolutely nothing what you're trying to say. But that's part of the experience. So sometimes people just feel more comfortable going with someone that's not afraid to do it. Like they might be like, oh, you've done it before. But it's just putting yourself out there and just like, hey, just go.
Go. Have fun. Do it. So here's one of the questions I feel like that is really important. Why would you consider travel, or international travel for that matter? Why do you feel like it would be an important complement to people's life? Like what value does it bring? What asset is there in doing this?
So on a personal level, what we've gone through, I feel that it definitely brings you closer. Experiences bring you closer. Being able to accomplish something, obstacles, challenges. I've seen different counselors, not personally, but like seeing what they have to say. And they talk about how important it is for a relationship, whether it's a married relationship, friendship relationship. When you overcome obstacles together, challenges, because every trip is going to have them. Whether you lose your luggage, your flight gets canceled, there's bugs in the room.
You show up at 8 o'clock at night and there's nothing to eat and you're hungry.
You get a flat tire. There's going to be all these obstacles, that you overcome. And when you do it as a team, regardless of whether it's with your friends or your spouse or your kids, it creates this bond, this really nice bond where you can laugh about it. You might be fuming at the moment. You might think your life is over. You might be planning your funeral, but once you're past all that and you look back at it and you think, wow, that was kind of fun. That we put ourselves in that situation, we overcame it. And I think it really helps just create stronger relationships.
And for the record, every one of those examples is an example that we've gone through.
At least one.
At least once, if not once, more than that. So what would be your motivating quotes, like things that you just kind of live by, and mantras?
So I do have a few that I shared with you. I think main one is travel is the only thing you can buy that makes you richer. Yes, you're spending money, but you just feel it fulfills you. And I think it's something, like I tell people, you need to get away from your life. You need to get away from work. You could love work more than anything and being with your family, but getting away, refreshing your mind and just kind of stepping back, it gives you motivation to be better at work, to want to come back to new ideas. How can I improve myself, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, in whatever aspect. So getting out of your routine, I think, is a healthy, important necessity for your mind. And maybe not getting out every week, although I'd be okay with it.
Yes, you would.
But just taking the time, at least a couple times a year. Some people say I can't do it, but yes, you can. You can't just spend your whole year's working because it's not healthy for you. So it's important. I think it's just a healthy, it should be like a prescription that the doctor gives you. Hey, you need a 2-week vacation. Here you go. You'll feel better after that.
Disconnect and don't take your computer with me.
Don't work. We do.
We do, yes.
Because we might travel a little bit more than just, the needed break. Sometimes we travel to work. I mean, we want, there's different reasons, but some people, especially if you're only going to do a couple a year or one, disconnect and really take care of yourself.
Right. Self-healing. Absolutely agree with that 100%. Money returns, but time doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I think we've seen that a few times.
Yeah. I mean,
because, and that's actually one of the solidifying moments for me was, our first 6 years, we were doing okay. You were working, I was working, and then I got terminated, and our adventures didn't stop. And even though we were pretty tight on the budget and we had to squeeze through a few times, it was like, yeah, the money's going to come back. That's okay. We still got to do this. And we ended up doing Japan the first time, a few other places, Mexico. And
the other thing, too, is physical. The reality is that our bodies fail us sometimes. And sometimes more than others, sometimes more. And when I, recently having gone through a couple of different personal physical ailments and experiences again, and it's like, you just realize, like, look, I could wake up tomorrow and not be able to walk, and I'm still going to travel.
Right.
but it won't be the same. So I might as well just do it while I can walk. I might as well do it while, while.
Well, you still got the time and energy, right? Powering through. My foot still hasn't healed.
Right?
So this is for you. What has been your most memorable trip that you've been on?
My most memorable trip. It's always the last trip because that's the one that keeps replaying in my mind and looking at pictures. I have not had a bad trip in my life. Actually, I have. I have not a bad trip, but I've had hard lessons learned.
I was going to say Texarkana sushi and Texarkana is maybe not the best choice.
That was work though. But I can't pick one, because every one is amazing. Like there's always something great about every one of them. So I can't, there's places I wouldn't go back to maybe, not on my list, but then there's so many places that we've gone back to over and over and over, and every time is a different moment. So I can't pick, I can't pick just one because there's too many.
So I think I know the answer to this question, and I'm going to try and set it up in one. If not, I'll do a follow-up to make sure I get it right. Okay. If you were to be able to say, if you were to suggest to anybody, what would be the one trip you got to go on? Everybody asks you the question, where do I need to go? What's the one thing that you need to do?
Everybody has a different dream. And the trip you need to go on is the one that you want to go on. The one that you've thought about, the one I've always wanted to go to Paris. My dream is to be in Hawaii. I want to be go down south, or I want to see Iceland, the lights, whatever it is, that's the trip you need to go on. Whatever trip is on your mind is what you need to do, because everybody has different tastes.
Folks, that was unprepared. It was exactly the answer I was looking for. But now I am going to flip the question.
But Paris or Japan.
Okay, yeah, so that's actually the next question. So if you were to basically say, hey, everybody's got to take this one trip in their lifetime, what would that be? What would that one trip be?
A trip around the world.
Right. It's true.
You need to take a trip around the world and see everything, because every place, starting with America, there's so many beautiful places that we have to see, that we have seen. And, just like I was just telling Lex, like one of my favorite places in the world, which people think I'm crazy because I would never live there right now, is California. The northern coast of California is just like, to me, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And a lot of places are one of the most beautiful places in the world. So yeah, I would book a trip around the world. They do exist. You can do it cheaper than you think. And I would just put everything on my bucket list. I want to see it all.
Cool. Let's wrap it up with the last question. You have multiple responsibilities that you handle.
I'm
sure you do. You have multiple responsibilities in your life. You are an inspiration for many folks in terms of travel. Like, how do you do it? How do you balance it? How do you keep things going, either at home and on the trips?
Find a man to do it all. Just kidding.
That wasn't a setup for me, no. But seriously.
Yes, you. You find a partner. Somebody who you can do it with. Literally.
Insert the match.
Doing it. Yeah. I mean, you can't do it alone. It's nicer to share things with someone. We absolutely love the experiences we've had with our kids. I love sharing everything with our kids. So it's we share things. I think we do great 50-50, and you give me my freedom to book something for the family. And
wasn't 2021 great? Wasn't 2021 great?
Oh, it hasn't stopped. But yeah, you just don't let your mind stop you from achieving whatever you want to achieve.
Cool. Yeah, because we do have all sorts of excuses. I personally, and I'll lay it on the table here. Like so our honeymoon was to Thailand, and I hadn't ever owned a passport. All my traveling was typically U.S. based. Like I can get in and out wherever I need to go if I need to go somewhere. So we get my passport when? It was like
a day or two before we left.
Yeah, something like that.
I told you I would leave on my own honeymoon.
Yeah.
Rather than wait for you.
I know. And so we go and do that, and that's fine. And we had a great time. And then we come back and we start doing these other trips. and my fears, obviously, and concerns, typical for most guys, I would say, was kicking in for the first few years. Specifically, Australia was an adventure because that was something I wanted to do. It was something I dreamt about as a kid, and it was something that I really wanted to get out of the way. But then we put Kenya in there. That was scary because you just don't know what to expect. And then we got Russia in there somehow, and that was freaking me out, like in my head. I think I've given you excuses all the way
So
through.
people, yeah. And then how you mentioned, what are people's challenges? My biggest challenge for any trip has always been you. And
Yeah.
fight. And I tell people, don't give up. Even if your husbands don't want to do something, you can still do it.
Yes. So this is a testament because everybody's going to have this issue, especially like in a healthy relationship. There's going to be one who either doesn't step up or is really reluctant. The dream is the dream, and that's the goal, is to get it done. Get past the fears, because I can tell you from experience, overcoming those fears, it has so many rewards and benefits. And again, it's given us a stress test in many different ways, but in a positive way. We've made it work in so many ways. So thank you. And thank you. And maybe I can thank you later. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. That does it for this episode 4 of the Move It podcast with me, Jared Urain, my special guest, Gabriela Macal. And that will wrap it up for this week's, as well as this month's episodes. And we'll move on to the next theme next month. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved it, please feel free to share. Make sure you click that reminder button and get notified every time we post a new episode. My name is Jared with the 5 Diamond Group here at Advice Realty, and this has been the Move It podcast. Be cool like a butterfly.